Ladies and gentlemen, calling the meeting of the Okeechobee Utility Authority, August the 12th, 2019, at 10 a.m. If you'll please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Never gets up. At this time, I'm going to determination.
None of us was kneeling. Yep.
Ms. Anderson is out. Mr. Clay?
Here.
Mr. Kreisman?
Here.
Mr. Fadley? Mr. Moldenhauer?
Here.
Mr. Leonard?
Here.
And myself. Moving on to item agenda number 2, the meetings of our last meeting held on July 8th, 2019.
Make a motion, accept as written.
I have a motion to accept.
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to agenda item number 3. Yes.
There's actually two motions we need. One was for the workshop meeting minutes, and the other is for the regular meeting.
2 sets of minutes.
Okay. Let me
What did I just do?
Regular minutes.
regular meeting. All
I
right.
make a motion that we accept the public meeting
Workshop.
or the workshop minutes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Leonard. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3, consent agenda.
Make a motion, accept as written.
I have a motion to accept consent agenda as written. All those in, a second, please.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, moving on to item number 11. The DO grant application at Okeechobee.
Mr. Chairman, you have in your board package and placed at your setting this morning a grant application for the Okeechobee project. The application that was in your board package from the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, somehow or another in the conversion got printed up as blank, like nothing was in. You have at your place setting is the appropriate application that was supposed to be in your board package as we have it today. This is still a working document, a fluid document, and is subject to any edits. But we wanted to present it this morning to you for the Okeechobee project. And again, this is just that if this is a project to the OUA board wished to submit, this is the application process. If it is correct, then we would go ahead and finalize that document over the coming weeks and then bring it back to the OUA board for final review and approval. Mr. Terry Burrows is here this morning also to help answer any questions, either from the BOCC or I could do it from the OUA, and we would entertain any questions you might have.
Commissioner Burrows, would you like to come up? Appreciate you being here this morning, sir.
I love being in front of you guys. Okay. This is Commissioner Burrows, District 4, Okeechobee County. John and I have been working on this for, I guess, a couple weeks. The issue is trying to put forth this grant in order to promote or pay for the second phase, which I call second phase of a 2-phase project. As John and I talked this morning, there's still some wording that we have to kind of craft out on this a little bit, but what we were trying to do was just get your agreement that it was good for us to push forward with it and go and submit it once this wording and some of the wording just has to do with some of the future things that's happening on Highway 78 with purchase of property and new buildings and things of that sort, just to try to subsidize more of the interest that what we're doing is going to be economically viable for the community in the long run. So most of these grants that DEO has in front of them, this particular one, are really focused a lot of times on jobs, but it's kind of an interesting concept because you can't focus on you can't submit the grant based on a specific company coming in, but you got to project number of jobs of what this would do. And so there's two folds on this. One, this could promote some jobs, as we've talked about the Bass Pro Okotanee piece of it, but this also takes a lot of the things that we have off of, I'll say this package plants that we have on the lakefront, and some of the other things that would help us promote some of the water quality of the lake. So that's the reason we're trying to get your concurrence on supporting this particular grant. There's no guarantees you're going to get funded on it. I think this year they got $40 million in the pot. And I'm sure that if I went back and looked today, there's probably 100 applications. So you really got to craft your words appropriately in order to get a good review of the grant.
Do you know anything about the history of these grants? I mean, do they actually give out $7-8 million in a grant, or?
Yes, there's in North Florida, folks. A lot of the counties up in North Florida have done very well in some of those grants. So I will say that there's been, I'll say one or two, maybe three that's been over the $5 million category. Oh, yeah. And that has a lot to do with developing industrial parks and things of that sort, infrastructure for the industrial park, not so much purchasing land, but once the land is there to build out the industrial park, things of that sort. But it also, as you can see, that's focused predominantly on jobs. I think as much emphasis as Lake Okeechobee has gotten in the past couple of years about the septic to sewer issues, if we can combine the septic to sewer issues with the potential opportunities that we see that are forthcoming, obviously that maybe hopefully would give us a little bit better view when they start reviewing the grants.
Terry, would it benefit us any to do this and add a page that this would lead into taking 1,100 off of septic in Buckhead Ridge?
He has an attachment on this document.
Okay, I read that, I was making sure that would.
Yeah, we want to build, that's the reason I wanted to put the words in there.
Yeah,
They'll see the attachment, but I think that we craft the words so that it shows the value in terms of what we're trying to do would be a little bit better.
Yeah, okay. So it's not, we can sell it as a package. This is the most important piece of the package for us to grow, or somehow.
Well, what I told John this morning is that the only thing I couldn't commit to, I think he's allocated the county to put 10% in for funding.
We got it in writing.
Huh?
We got it in writing.
Yeah, I know, but I hadn't signed off on it yet, so it don't make any difference. That's like toilet paper to me. But the point was, I told him, I said, you have to take a look at it two ways. Number one, the county could say, yeah, we've already paid $534,000 in order to remove the reversionary rights in order to get this piece of property so that we can start selling something. Or two, which I prefer, is that you folks have already done phase one. You're working on phase one. That's your portion of the money that goes into supporting the process of this overall phase. So that's some of the things that we just need to work out and craft out the words for.
Well, this benefits everybody, including the city. I don't see them listed here anywhere. Not as good a salesman as we.
I don't know. I don't know if it benefits the city. I can't tell you what benefits the city nowadays, so I shouldn't comment any further on that. Because I don't know exactly how many people are going to be removed in terms of septic tanks in the city. I don't believe there are that many of them.
I was looking at the benefit to the whole community.
Yeah, you could say that. We could probably craft some words into it to show beneficial or the benefit or the economic benefit for the whole community.
The impact to the whole
Yeah.
community.
Any further questions? Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Anytime.
One more thing.
Yes, sir.
It's always me.
Hey, listen, I'm used to you. I'm good. That's good.
And John brought this up earlier. Have we took a second to look at the cost of putting a facility down there again. I know we talked about, not on their property, but going back on the JoJo Farms or on the Pierce property or somewhere and building a plant. Would it be, this is probably more of a question for Sumner back there. Would it be feasible to spend this money building an alternate facility?
Well, I'll tell you the conversations I've had with Mike Dunham of Bass Pro. His interest was, are we moving forward with this second phase? And I basically told him, John and I are working on a grant, but we're not doing anything until I get you to sign a contract. All right? And they're still working through their process of trying. So what I've done, and to help him out, he wanted to know, John needed some information to understand flows and what was the expectation. So I've given John, or Mike Dunham, John's information. I'm going to reverse it and give John Mike's information so they can get together and start understanding what's really needed. I think once that portion of the conversation has been completed, then we can answer your question in a more logical sense.
I just, that way that all lays out there, you could Buckhead Ridge all the way up to Fast Break area there, and it only puts you 1.5 miles over to Buck Daniels' place, come in the backside of Lazy Seven. I'm just thinking out of the box. So,
well, it's good you think through the future piece of it, and I think that's good, and I appreciate that, because so many times we don't think 3 and 5 years out. We think 1 and 2 years out.
No, you've got to think long term.
Right. So I appreciate the conversation that you're thinking through that, because the Buckhead Ridge issue is, I'll say, important for a lot of people, because I think that I'm not sure where the housing development is or what stage that's in, but that's something you have to be concerned with yourself.
depends on if you go in the morning or in the afternoon to talk to Glenn.
My understanding the morning is a much better opportunity, but that's beside the point. That's not in my bailiwick to be concerned with. It is yours, though. But like I said, John and I are kind of working together on this. I'll try to finish off what I'm thinking it should be. I'll say more verbiage into it, and to include what you talked about, the 1,100 septic tanks, et cetera, and what we could remove off of the lakefront. Because I think that's one of the predominant factors here, is that we're seeing that a lot of that property is being bought now, and some people are just kind of waiting around to see what's going to happen with our project down on Okeechobee. So, well, I think once that trigger is pulled, then other things will happen.
And there's so much state land there, and there's some private land there that you could do your spray fields, and there's a lot of benefit to being down there.
Mm-hmm.
So, just a thought.
It's a good thought. All right. Any other questions, comments? Good. Appreciate it.
Keep us in the loop. Thank you.
All right.
All right, so just to finalize, then we'll go ahead and continue to work on this application and bring it back at the next meeting in a more final format.
I would.
Yeah, well, I think we need to pursue it. And your idea, one of the things way back when I first started with Melanie, and some others, is that we thought that in the future, way in the future, that we'd probably have to put a plant up in 4 plants, one in each corner of the county, in order to accommodate the future. The Lake Okeechobee issue is not going to go away. In my opinion, I think it's going to become more intense. A lot of things that I've been reading and seeing on the internet from the better websites and better newspapers is that there has been a decline in the amount of clean, fresh water available to the public. We can't survive unless we have water, plain and simple. And the Okeechobee area and others, in the lake, I think are going to become a very more intense topic in the future. You just got to stay ahead of everybody else.
Well, they're doing some projects. Likes Brothers is quietly doing the Brighton piece out there, and that's something that the Pierce family's been screaming for about 3 years and not getting any traction. And kind of see now why we're not getting any traction, because they're already building this monster, you know, literally 3 miles upstream. But you're going to see more of that. And of course, with this staff we have in Tallahassee right now, it's just, who knows? But if they don't clean it up before it gets to us, I mean, it's all we are. And I've made this comment before, you know, we're the septic tank, and everything that leaves it's the drain fields. So it needs to be cleaner coming in. And there's piles and piles of property up there that belong to the state.
Okay. Moving on to item agenda number 12, FDOT roundabout, US 441 Southeast at Southeast 18th Terrace.
Another one of our favorite projects that we need to talk about. We've had a couple meetings with DOT, and they've asked us to move forward with a utility work schedule as to the intent of what the OUA is going to be doing to move our existing water mains out of their work zone. You find attached in your board package a proposed method of construction that would remove the the existing 8-inch water main on the, what is, I guess, the south shoulder of the road, and the existing 6-inch water main on the north shoulder of the road, which will become under some of their new travel lanes, and that's why they want us to remove them. If we were to move forward with this project, we could do it one of two ways. We could either contract it out with consultants and contractors to do the work, or I would imagine that we could do much of the work in-house. If we are to do it in-house, I would propose that we would do it under a phased approach to do the 2 end pieces, which are directional drills underneath the road, tie those in, get them set up. In March, when the DOT completes the acquisition of the property on the south side, we could then go in and do the rest of the piping along the south side of the road, and then put all that in service. And once construction of the roadway begins in around late summer of 2020, we would have access to those 2 existing water mains and take them out of service, or actually take them out of the ground. They would already be out of service. That's the game plan. It's several $100,000 worth of our money to remove perfectly good piping and install some new piping. And I guess I would open that up to any board questions or comments at this time.
Is the benefit for us to do it in phases like you think? Would that be the best way to do it?
Well, I would assume, yes, sir. I would say it would be both a little more convenient, because we would be doing it with our own people at our own schedule. The nice part about it is, if you hire consultants and contractors to do the work, it's pretty much on them to get the work done, whether that's the actual work, MOT, whatever the case, whatever is required. But I do we could not do it if we had to start and do it all at once. I mean,
Right.
We just don't have the people or the equipment. But if we break it up into smaller bites, then we do have the people that can do that work, and the equipment.
I'd do it ourselves.
You're estimating approximately $391,000 to outsource this for design and a construction.
That is a ballpark estimate, yes,
Yeah,
sir.
well, we've got qualified, competent people on the payroll that can do this. Why spend the other $400,000?
Well,
Just do
we're
the
at that
job.
point where we have to go, we're at the fork in the road. And clearly, right now, I would suggest that because we came up with this phased approach, it makes it more advantageous for us to do it where we don't have to try to do it all at once.
That sounds good to me. I don't know. You need a motion on that?
I would certainly appreciate having that direction, formal direction from the board.
Okay, can I have a motion?
Wait a minute, we got,
Just a quick financial type question. Is this going to require a budget amendment? I know we're fixing to adopt a budget. Is this built into the existing budget that's been presented, the proposed budget, or is it going to require further amendment?
It will require some documentation in the new budget, but we are still under that stage right now where we have a preliminary budget. We have options in here that we have to talk about this morning, going forward with trying to prepare a final budget for FY20. But by talking about it today, whether it's 260 or 390, it gives us that direction we need to work towards that final budget for FY20.
Okay, that was really the basis of
And we-
that.
and we have several of those things to
Preliminary, And if the action is taken, then there'll be a further adjustment in the preliminary budget before final.
That is true, yes, sir.
Okay.
I make a motion that we do the work at the roundabout in-house in phases.
Utilize, look at the staff recommendation, Tom.
You want me to go all the way back up and find that and read it, don't you?
Utilizing your OUA resources.
Including personnel.
The recommendation's at the bottom of the first page.
On item 12,
Yeah, I'm on 12, I keep missing it.
Very, very
Last
bottom.
paragraph.
highlighted paragraph.
There you go. OUA staff recommended moving forward with project utilization, OUA resources, including personnel, equipment, and material. Staff will initiate design and permitting for phased approach with regards to the work. So said.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Moving on to agenda item number 13, Lakeview Estates, wastewater.
This is the ongoing saga that's been several years in the making. I tried to recapture, if you will, the process that we've gone through with this state appropriation that was, if you will, directed towards a private corporation to do a wastewater treatment plant demonstration project in either Dade County or Okeechobee County. They looked around and settled on Lakeview Estates wastewater treatment plant that is in the Okeechobee Utility Authority service area, but it is in Buckhead Ridge, Glades County. And DEP, which is overseeing the appropriation, did agree that that would be an appropriate project, even if it is in Glades County, since it is serving the OUA, which is in Okeechobee County. We have gone back and forth with this project. They the private entity wanted us to hold all the contracts and put it out to bid. And our position has always been that we would be more of a conduit for the resources from the state to us and then from us to them. This is not an OUA project, so we didn't have to go through the design process, public bids, and all of that. We are still working on a contract with them. I do not believe you have it yet, Tom, the final document. We're still waiting on it. At this time, we haven't. But the reason why I'm bringing it to the board today is, again, looking at our FY20 budget, which you have a preliminary copy of, and we're all working towards a final FY20 budget for next month. I felt it was necessary that we go ahead and put a line item in the budget showing the resources, the money coming in from the state, and then turning around and leaving, going to the contractor. So if the project happens, we'll have the resources coming in and the expenses going out. If it doesn't happen, it'll be an unused line item in the budget. Speaking of Mr. Glenn this morning, I guess, briefly, I got some phone calls late last week that said his
Late in
project
the
is
day
back
or
on.
late in the week?
Actually, I got it from one of his realtor. I did not speak to him. Said that they had agreements in place and the project is back on. Would they consider putting this treatment plant on their property? And I said, at this point, I don't know if we're even doing it, but we'll keep it under advisement. So I don't know where that project is, whether it's happening or not. But they
He's
said-
offered to put it on his property, this or a facility. There's also probably an offer across the road to move it back off of 70 about a mile.
We would certainly entertain that, and again, I guess from our previous agenda item, we would have to go back and revisit whether or not moving the waste stream from Okatani northward is the best opportunity, or if we build a bigger treatment plant, whether it should go down to Glades County, because we still have the 1,200 to 1,400 water customers down there now that may eventually become wastewater customers. So I think if Mr. Harvey's deal is back on as a green light and a go, we probably should revisit that. And rather than spending $4 million, $5 million in additional piping going north, maybe it could go towards a new treatment plant. But it's something we probably should spend some time looking at. This item, though, is just whether, in theory, we could go ahead and add the budget resources and budget expenses for this project in the FY20 budget. And I would certainly recommend that we'd go ahead and do that.
It's kind of a wash. It's a wash. Come in, go out, come in and go out. So I
So
mean,
do we need a motion, or you just?
yes.
Well, on this item, I mean, Tom says yes. I'm just telling you that we still have to enter this in the FY20 proposed budget, and certainly that will be revisited and certainly motions made. But if Tom says we do need to do it, then I'm certainly for it.
In planning for potential project, OUA staff is recommending that line items should be added to the FY20 budget showing the revenue of $1 million from the state and the cost of $1 million for the demonstration of project. If the project does not go forward, these items will not be realized in the FY20 budget year. So said.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Second. Any further discussion?
Is there any way we can word this where it's predicated on that $1 million from the state before any expenditures happen?
Whether it's grant, I'm not sure whether it's grant.
It is a state appropriation, so it would be essentially a grant to us, which we would be passing through to One Water. And if I could ask one other question, who gets the second? Because I heard two voices at the same time. Tommy made the,
Tommy Clay made the original. Jeff made the.
Jeff did not.
Did not.
Give it to John.
It was Harry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Boy,
Harry's
Me,
elected.
because I wouldn't.
Harry threw his voice.
getting in there, saw you.
So, yes, sir, the appropriate, and that certainly would be that this does say $1 million from the state passed through to the expenses going to this project. If that helps you out, Mr. Griezmann, I don't,
It would be earmarked money, so it'd be grant. I would call it a grant. I think it'd be a state grant.
So do you want me to amend this and say 1 million from the state grant?
You're just wanting to put it on as a line item now, right?
we just should show something in the budget as the 1 million coming in from the state
And going
and the
out.
money going out as an expense to this project.
But there's no verbiage needed that it's predicated on getting that million. If it doesn't come in, it just doesn't exist.
That's right, it doesn't come in.
That was my
Doesn't come in,
concern.
it's not gonna be spent.
That was my
Comes in, it's
concern.
gonna be spent.
Okay. I'm fine with it then.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item agenda number 14, water conservation projects grant application.
This was an interesting one. Came in the form of an email that the 40, I don't know how many $40 million earmarks were put in the budget last year, but this is at least one of them that was given to DEP, and it morphed into a alternative water conservation grant. Then I heard about it from several different folks. Water Management District is taking the lead. The South Florida Water Management District is taking the lead, I guess, in this area, asking us to put together shovel-ready projects that we can put this money towards either one of those items, either an alternative water funding or a water conservation. In discussions with them, I basically said we don't really have any projects that are on the shelf other than if you want to fund a wastewater treatment plant or two, or pipeline, collection system, septic to sewer, and they said that those basically would not be what they were looking for. But in discussions with them, they were talking about meter upgrades and meter replacements. And if you remember, we're going through thousands of meter replacements right now. And staff has looked at, and certainly we've taken the options of looking at upgrading the water meter system to either what they call AMR, the automatic meter reading, or AMI, which is more of a remote sensing infrastructure improvement project. We have met with at least 3 or 4 vendors of these products. We have been to see one of them in application at another utility. We have 2 more scheduled for this month to go to. And we see some real benefits from this automatic metering infrastructure. I think I addressed some of them here, but you guys have heard from customers that have had water line breaks on their property. They're in Kentucky, and it runs for 30 days before anybody finds it, and they've got 250,000 gallons that have gone through their meter and a big bill. That's troubling. If we had the automatic meter reading, we could preset it to say 3,000 gallons a day. If more than 3,000 went through a meter, call us and we'll go check on it. If a meter was supposed to be in the locked and off position, it gets tampered with, somebody is using some water, the AMI system would notify us that there's water usage at a meter that's supposed to be off and locked. Flow reversal, somebody hooks a pump up to the system, we would get notified. If somebody's selling property, got the buyer and the seller in your lobby and they want to transfer, we could interrogate the system, find out what the meter reading is, and solve it all right there, right now. So there are some benefits that the AMI system could provide to the OUA. One of the other important issues, if we went with the customer portal, a customer could log on to their account and see their own water usage and bills to see where they're at and why they have such a big bill. For some weekend, they could go by, oh, that's when we had visitors and we used a lot of water. So there are some ideas that this AMI type system would work. Unfortunately, it comes with a price tag. Keep in mind that we were already going to be spending, I think we have up to $200,000 in the line item this coming year for just meter replacements. If we replace the meters and we added this AMI technology, there were 3 categories. One would be just Buckhead Ridge only, or the second one was Buckhead plus the south area of our service area, or in its entirety, all 9,400 meters. Various price tags. We would certainly at this point suggest that we go ahead and fill out an application and submit it to see if we get approved. These are cost sharing, up to 50% cost sharing by the state. Doesn't mean we will get 50%, maybe we get 20, 25, but at least we could submit something. What it does mean, though, is if we move forward, and it happens to be the middle project, which is 1.1 million, If it's the 50% cost share, then 550,000 would be our end of the deal. But it does move us forward into technology that is somewhat current in other areas. It's not the majority, but it's where people are headed. So entertaining questions?
I have a question, John. What is the cost difference between the meters we're presently using and these new meters?
The meters are all the same. We've been purchasing the SR2 meters. So there may not be that total meter cost at $100 a meter, I think, for the 3,000. We might have some relatively new meters in there, so there would be that savings. What we do have to pay for under this application is the transmitter that goes on the meter, the antennas to receive those transmits from the meters, and then the software in the office to be able to handle it.
My concern is we every 10 years approximately, we have to replace meters. If it's going to be the same cost as what we're looking at, it's not going to be an elevated cost going with a new meter in.
It is the same exact meter that we're using now, the SR2, for the positive displacement. We can go with an upgraded meter, which we do not use, but we don't have the comfort level with that meter yet. So we're staying with what we're currently using, the SR2.
I have one more item, and it's a kind of ugly item, but if we go to these meters, what are you going to do with the meter readers presently on staff?
Fire them? No.
Wrong answer.
No, that is something yet to be decided. However, keep in mind that we have a total of 9,500 meters in the system. So we're only talking about doing about a third of those meters. So the other 6,000 meters would still have to be read every month and bills produced. Those meter readers it will either, if we do end up having some surplus time, they can go back and do other maintenance that we turn over to the maintenance department, such as changing out meters, repair the meters. Some of them have software experience, so they might become clerks. There is no intention of termination. That's just not on the agenda.
Thank you.
So this program or grant would not pay for new meters. It would pay for the telemetry and software to read them.
New meters are figured into the $1.1 million cost.
New meters are, so the cost share would actually save us some money on meters. It's not just over and above what we're already going to be spending.
That is correct, yes, sir.
It's basically double of what we were planning on doing this year, but there's no telling how long it'd take to get that grant information back.
They were asking for shovel-ready projects, so I'm assuming it's going to be very, very fast, quick. It won't be years in the making. I would expect that they would be making decisions fairly quickly because it is for this budget year.
So we'd have to pull $350,000 from some other account because we've got 200 and something in line item for this, so we'd have to go somewhere else for the 350.
If we're given the green light today to go ahead and fill out this application, George and I are going to go back and still work on this FY20 budget to see where we make it work. And assuming, it's a 50-50 split. Now, if it turns out to be, something different, we'll just have to adjust.
I'll give you my salary from the OUA. You can put towards it.
That is greatly appreciated, sir.
You need a motion, or?
Yeah.
I would certainly agree with the motion that we move forward with whichever zone that you feel comfortable with. I gave you 3 areas. I would certainly recommend that area 2, the Buckhead Ridge and the immediate south area for the $1.1 million, that we go ahead and fill out the application and authorize the board chairman or staff to execute the application and submit it for consideration.
Y'all want me to go down and find the bottom of the page again and read
Well,
it?
I'll make a motion that we proceed with item number 2, Buckhead Ridge and Southern Service Area to serve approximately 3,800 residents, master meters, and non-residential accounts at a cost of plus or minus $1,110,000.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second.
And that would be to do the application process.
Right. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to item agenda number 15.
Board members, again, trying to do the housekeeping issues before we get into the preliminary budget. You'll find under item 15 is the OUA healthcare benefit proposal. When the preliminary budget was presented to the OUA board, PRM had projected our healthcare insurance rate increase to be 8%. After all the smoke cleared and adjustments were made, our actual healthcare expenses went up 4.7% from instead of the 8%. So the question would then be needed to ask if the healthcare benefit was looking to go from $620 a month to $775 to help offset this 8% increase and some other increases that happened in previous years. Do we still need to keep it at $775? And I know there was some board discussion at one of the past meetings as to whether or not there needed to be some adjustments. So what I need from the OUA board today is some kind of guidance, whether it stays at the 775 or does it go down because the insurance at 8% only went up 4.7%. And the reason why I need to know this now is in the coming weeks, we have our sign-up period for employees to sign up for insurance next year. They have to make choices now so that in September we start making the appropriate withdrawals from their paychecks for the insurance to begin 1 October. So we make selections in August. The payments for October come out of the paychecks in September to begin 1 October, and that's why we kind of need an idea now as to where that health care benefit is going to be so our employees can make the appropriate choices here in the next few weeks, which would be before the September date for when we adopted a budget.
So we went up 4.7%. We budgeted it to go up 8%. And you're asking us to leave it at 775, move it up from 620?
Right now, presently today, we get $620 a month. The preliminary budget, based upon previous year increases and the one that we were looking at the time of 8%, we adjusted or presented it to the board to increase from 620 to 775. The 8% increase did not materialize. It only went up 4.7%. So if you look at the graph on the second page of your handout, there is a chart there. And this is also true on the first page, same chart. The only difference is the brown line, the vertical line, is either going to be at 775 or 700 as two representations. If you kept it where we're proposing at 775, there are 5 monthly health insurance premium costs that any employee could pick, and the 775 would cover that monthly expense. If it's set at $700, there's still 3 of the healthcare premiums that would be covered by that $700. At $620, if we kept it at $620, you can see from the tables that our health care premiums that our employees pay would not be covered by the $620,
No, with that, on that table,
except for the ACA deal. Yes, sir?
on that table is the cost of those different insurance options, is that the 2019 price, or is that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the 2020 price would be 4.7% higher than that?
No, sir, the seven, like the first one, Blue Choice, 727, that employee would pay 737.87 a month as a health care premium.
That is
Inclusive-
at a 4.7 increase, or
that's
is that an 8% increase?
That's inclusive of a 4.7 increase.
Well, those tables, it's the same, the tables list the same prices.
That is correct, but if you look in the OUA contribution column, in one of them it's 775, and in the other it's only 700.
Right, I know it, but we're not getting an accurate actual price of the options, because the options are listed as the same in both tables, regardless of whether it's an 8% increase or a 4.7% increase.
It's estimated FY 2020.
The tables are the same, and they reflect the 4.7% increase. The only difference in the
Okay.
tables is if we kept it at 775, by the shading, you'll see there's 5 premiums that would pay for the employees. On the second table and chart, if it was lowered to $700, there's only 3 of the current
I got you.
premiums would be covered by the 700.
Yeah.
So they're essentially the same values for whether it's employee, family, whatever. But what we try to do is in, hiring benefits, we try to tell the employees that we will pay for your health care benefits, not the employee spouse or employee family or anything like that. So either one of these options, there's anywhere from 3 to 5 premiums that would be covered by the 700 or the 775.
What is the staff's recommendation?
Well, I would certainly suggest the 700 is comparable or good. There's at least 3 plans that the employees could choose from the ACA to HSA or the blue options. 700 is certainly doable. It does create some additional revenues in the budget if we had it at 700 rather than 775. But I do believe keeping it at 620 is too low.
I have a question, John. So the information you gave us 2 months ago, whenever we were, I guess it was 2 months ago, the majority of our employees opt for the one on the far right, the 5168/5169 blue option.
That is,
There's 30, well, I'm looking at the chart now, at least 30 of our employees have that. The majority do. Then the others, like 3 people, 4 people, 2 people, blah, blah, blah. If we allot the 775, that's a $180 difference. What are they going to do with that $180? What can they use that for?
regardless of the money, whether it's 620, 700, 775, it is only money that they can use towards health care expenses. So if they don't use it, they lose it. So they could use it for accidental death insurance if they want, cancer. The benefit of the 5168 or 5169, those are health savings accounts. So any monies that are not used for health care premiums gets put into their health savings account, and by default, those monies can only be used for qualified medical expenses, and that's where it would go towards.
Not bad. Not
Sir?
bad. That's not bad. Not bad at all. I'd like to have $180.
Well, that's one of the, that's one of the real benefits of health savings accounts is that as an individual, I can put money into it up to a certain limit. My employer could do it. and it goes towards any qualified health, medical event upon retirement or leaving employment with the OUA, that money stays with you. So you still can take it with you. It's your savings account to go towards a qualified medical expense, be that a doctor's visit, ER visit, whatever is qualified under the IRS rules. It's a very good plan.
Yeah, I wish I had it.
It may have a higher
Where do I sign up?
It may have a higher copay on certain visits, but still, once you meet your deductible, it's equal to many of the other plans.
Yeah, we can't forget that we're spending what we are 20-something thousand over at urgent care to keep these prices in check. My insurance at my company went up 12% in middle of renewal right now, and 12% is a hard number for them. So we're spending money there. We need to take that into consideration in this, I think.
I believe the 775 is excessive. I actually believe the 700 is a little excessive. I think we could do it for 675 because the majority of our people are at the 595.70 level. If it was more diverse and the people were up at the front end, then I would have a different opinion. But I think we can cater to most of the staff by going from 620 to 675 and still be okay.
I didn't bring those numbers with me, I don't think, as far as the numbers, but if you said there was 34 in that column, we have 52 employees. That means 28 are utilizing the other premiums.
Yeah, there's 5 at the first, which is probably you.
Five at the first. No, do you see the one down there under family coverage?
Yeah. There's 5 in the first group, 7 in the second group, 5 in the third group, and then 30 in the last group. So that's the data you gave us last time.
So again, keep in mind, we have 54 employees. So if there's 30 in this one category, there's 24 spread throughout the other programs.
You're accounting for 47 people.
Okay.
So there's 7 people that aren't insured, obviously. They just take the 620 and go to the...
Well, we may have hired some since May or June when that was produced.
Gotcha. All right, well, like I said, I can't support the 775, but the 700 is getting in the ballpark. 675, I think, would be fair, but I presented my position 2 months ago and didn't get the support of the board. Don't think it'll change today. So.
Make a motion and see.
Anybody else want to speak on it?
I'm just waiting a second.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we allot $700 to the...
That was 675.
If somebody will even second it.
Second.
I have a motion. I have a second.
$7 a month.
Any further discussion by the board members? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
You weren't so bad, John, right?
Open-minded, you know.
He talked himself right up to it.
Agenda item number 16.
That's contingent on us getting health care up here, by the way.
You control that one, so if you want it, we can do it.
Preliminary FY.
Mr. Chairman and board members, you have in front of you what we were trying to lead up to with all of these other discussions on FDOT roundabout, Lakeview, and healthcare benefits. We're now at the preliminary FY20 budget that was approved in June meeting, and we are working towards a final budget a discussion and approval at the next meeting in September. We just wanted to give you the chance to view where we're going with some changes to the preliminary budget that we have encountered either upon our own review, additions or deletions of projects, or comments from various folks. So you have in front of you there certainly some of the biggest items dollar-wise would certainly be the DOT project and the Lakeview project. The water conservation project kind of came up at the last minute last week. But we have all these things that are out there. Certainly, I can go through them one by one, or if you have looked through them and you have some questions, we would certainly be happy to try to answer those this morning. Again, the ultimate end goal is that we are working towards a public hearing at the next meeting, September meeting, to adopt a final budget. If there was some discussion that folks may have been interested in doing a workshop, which we've held, if there's need for another one, we would certainly be open to that, but I would open it up to comments or questions at this time.
Well, I think we've talked about these items individually today, and you've gotten your guidance on that. I don't think that there's any need for any further discussion personally.
Well, you can see in the second paragraph, there are a few small items that we're noticing as we go from a 6-month budget to a 9-month budget. Anytime we can get more real-time data, that's where we have to kind of tweak numbers, whether it's fuel cost or O&M cost or revenue. That's primarily, it's I don't want to say it's not something we need to be concerned about, but it's smaller numbers when you start talking about $1 multi-million-dollar budget. But we will make those adjustments because it is truer data reflecting our revenue stream and expense stream as we move forward to September.
That makes bookkeeping easier. That's fine.
Well, I mean, you know, I'm one of these proponents that look at what you have to look at what you budgeted, which would be based upon, say, a 5-year window. But to look at the truer numbers, where are you at with the past 9 months within that 5-year budget window? Because there could be expenses that are very valid but may only occur every few years. Case in point would be permitting applications for DEP. We don't deal with those every year, but we do deal with them every several years. So there's things that we have to keep true over that 5-year window for budgetary purposes. But looking at the last 9 months, it will reflect rising fuel costs, health care, electricity. It does touch on that. So that's why we look at it.
Okay. I think we've given you the guidance on the proposed changes today, so what more are you looking for?
All we really need is just the idea, the concept that we would be bringing it back at the September meeting with a public hearing where you will get another look at the budget. But if there was a glaring error or heartbeat or, you know, something wrong or that you want to question, the sooner those questions are posed to us, the easier it is to adjust for the September meeting. I'll see if George has anything.
Yeah, all these changes reduce cash that's not restricted, $350,000. So it reduces us down to less than $500,000 of unrestricted cash in next year's budget.
Okay.
Are you comfortable with that number?
Well,
Either one of you?
I think it's getting a little tight.
and certainly I would go a little bit more. I'd say I'm comfortable with it. We have built into our budget, there are reserve accounts that we set aside, both RR&I and the 90-day. We have different reserve accounts. And while in years past we had a lot more money sitting there in the bank. We've had some fairly big capital expenses. If you drive by the surface water treatment plant, you'll see the new storage tank is up and out of the ground. They're starting the steel work. They've done the foundation. That's a $5 million project. It's a lot of money. We're talking about the southwest area. That's going to be pending, a lot of money. So the $350,000, it's tight, but I mean, I like our budgetary process, and I'm okay with it. I mean, if we do some of these expansion projects like the southwest area, we'll be bringing more people on board. Whispering Pines is just completed, so we'll see a full year of those 160 water customers. So that's a good sign. More customers. We already have the debt, for the water plant and the wastewater plant. It's a positive sign budgetary-wise.
Thank you.
Moving on to item agenda number 17. The public would step up to the podium.
17?
Public comment.
Public
Okay.
comment.
Do you have
I'll
anything to say? Take your
I thought I
OUA
missed
hat off and vent?
I thought I missed something on my agenda, sorry.
Okay. Items from the attorney.
I don't know that I could tell you anything. We've got some depositions coming up on 46th Avenue in a little over a week.
Good
And
luck
we'll
with
see what happens as a result of that.
We're going back wagers on how much longer we're going to mess with this?
Well,
Good luck with that.
I'd like to see the sun set on that.
Yeah.
We shall see.
Items from the executive director.
I don't have anything. No, just kidding.
You better.
You have a few items. You have a few items there in the board package. Clearly, some of them, the Department of Corrections needed some help, so we were able to go out and assist them to open a lineup that was blocked. They were very appreciative of that emergency work. 46th Avenue Villas, the long-awaited lawsuit is starting to come together. We have depositions coming up very soon of the two primary owners, if you will, of the 46th Avenue Villas. State Road 710, that's still happening. I can't tell you anything more about it other than the state is doing their work on the property to know what the taking is, the value of that. We're still working with them on the placement of the roadway adjacent to the well field. I'm not very positive that anything will come of that, but we are still trying to pursue that with them. You have in your board package a request from the Economic Council, and that may get some board action as to whether we would like to move forward with that appointment.
Are they offering us a free membership?
I think you
There's
could probably,
a grant back there.
you could probably direct that to the public sector that's here. But they're just appointing,
Liaison.
the president's coming up, okay.
Was not. To clarify, it's not actually a membership. Our bylaws actually don't allow governmental entities to be members in the council. That being said, we do offer, and we're not calling, help me out, Jennifer, we're not calling them ex officio members anymore, but they're liaison positions to all of the non-private entities within the county, Okeechobee County. The city participates. There's a space, so far everybody but the utility authority. And given the issues that we try to track in terms of growth and economic development and things like that, obviously you guys are a critical player in that. So to the extent that you're able to to participate and appoint someone as a liaison to our organization, we would greatly appreciate it. That answers the question.
Yes.
Is it a paying position?
It's exactly like the one you've got now.
Okay, just making sure.
That's going to put us in a different tax bracket.
So really, if the board is so choosing to appoint or elect a member from the board, Mr. Fadley just raised his hand, so.
Wrong answer.
But for the
How
member-
often are they going to meet, Jeff?
Is that your luncheons, basically?
Yeah, our general membership meetings are roughly every other month.
Okay.
I think that we can. Do I have a volunteer?
I'll go.
All right, so you're elected.
I love harassing those people.
Just as long as we don't get blindsided like we did several years ago.
So if I get it, then would be Tommy Clay, and do you want me to also attend?
Yes, sir,
those
most
two?
definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, I can outrun you.
He might tackle you, though.
Not if I trip you.
If that's all right with everybody.
That's great.
And last but not least, well, two other items. I briefly touched on one of them that's not in your board package. The surface water treatment plant construction project is moving ahead. They have all of their foundation work done on the tank, and they have started on the vertical walls. Just as a reminder, this project, while it looks like it's moving along, they've entered into a really slow phase now to be able to get all the steel in and up. I mean, it's a 60 some odd feet high, so you can tell by the height of the scaffolding how far they're going to go. But the project is due to be substantially complete next June, with final completion in August. So that's the time frame that we're working with. Last but not least, we had talked about lobbyists and certainly representation. To start with, we looked at the federal lobbyists. You can see their cost every month that is approved in the consent agenda. I can tell you that it's been several months since I've heard from them. I don't see a whole lot happening within on the federal side, although they can be helpful, I guess could be helpful at times. But I just don't see that cost of $33.25 per month benefiting the OUA. And if that is a decision of the board, we can invoke the termination clause that's in their attached agreement.
The reason I didn't bring this up earlier is because I saw it on one of your bullet points, but I'd like to make a motion that we terminate the agreement with Thorn Run Partners just because of that lack
Second.
of communication.
Okay. We have a motion, we have a second.
And of course, a part of that motion would be for the appropriate execution by board chairman or staff
Correct.
for that termination.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That's all I have for you.
Do you think we should seek another representative, or just go without a federal lobbyist?
No, I think we need to seek, in my opinion.
We put RFPs up for that, or?
Well, that's what we've done in the past, but if you remember, there's two things that they can do for us at that type of level. One is for regulatory interaction, any pending rules, laws, what we might need, or funding request. And right now, the only funding request that we might have going forward where they may be of some benefit is funding for the Southwest section is going through a USDA application process. However, I don't know how much they would actually be able to help us on that, since it is all done really at the local and the state level, not at the federal level. Jeff could certainly talk on that, but in the past, it's all been done at the local and the state. The federal really didn't have a big amount to do in that application process.
So Connie and Dale help us with that though, right?
Certainly, if we did not have federal lobbyists, I am sure they have contacts like they do in Tallahassee that we could garner some support from.
I still would like to go after RF, so that I still think we need representation. I'm not saying go out to hire, but I'd like to hear from some of these groups of what they would have to offer to us.
Well, we can certainly go out and try to search through to see what kind of representation is at the federal
Right.
level.
I'm not saying you know, become further educated. There's a new election coming up. I don't know which way it's going to go. It's all about contacts.
Well, speaking of contacts, the state level, we have had our meetings with our representative and our senator for this area.
Right.
The other 3 meetings, we had to cancel. Well, we were asked to cancel one of them due to a medical issue, but we are still trying to get the 3 meetings with the other
Mayfield.
state representatives and senators that might be helpful towards any appropriations in the coming legislative session.
Well, we got Connie and Dale on till what, January?
Yes, sir, certainly through that time period.
I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I'd like to see a new horse, or at least look at some other facilities out, or other firms out there. And some people might take this the wrong way, but I kind of like to be represented wholly the OUA and not OUA city, county.
Okay.
I'd rather see us have our own fight in the House, our own group fighting for us that can negotiate with the Dales and Melitas and them. I just,
Let me bring back at the next meeting specifically what their contract extends through, because the only concern that we have is that with committee weeks coming up next month and the legislative process beginning in January, we want to be represented in Tallahassee.
well, I think you have to stay with them at this point.
Right, but I'm just looking at their contract when this one expires
Then-
versus a new one,
Yeah.
if it's an annual deal, where we're at with it. That's what I think is going to be important.
When me and you were there were 2,200 lobbyists there that day.
Right.
See how many senators?
Well, again, the deal is that certainly whomever our lobbyists are, the benefit is both the regulatory side as well as the financial side. And whomever our lobbyist is going to be quite helpful in setting up these meetings whether it's before or during committee weeks up in Tallahassee.
And again, I'm not saying they're not the right people, but
Right.
it's the only ones we've looked at for years and years and years.
Yes, sir. We'll bring that back and go from there.
How far are we off from putting the shovel in the ground on the Southeast 8th Avenue replacement of the main?
Just last week, we finally got the city review of the plans. We have a meeting scheduled tomorrow with the engineer to go over the final comments. I would suspect that by the time we have our next meeting, it'll already be out on the street, advertised for receiving bids. I would then guess that we would bring that back at the October meeting, and by November, do the paperwork, contract sign, notice to proceed issue. So right about when we end the hurricane season and start full-fledged winter visitors would be when we're out there working.
Now, what about the line rupture we had in the middle of town? What's that going to create for us in the future? I know I had all y'all up there on a Friday afternoon.
And Saturday.
And Saturday.
Right now, that is drying out. The intent is we have to go back and remove the temporary patch that we put in some subgrade material that will provide the reinforcement, and then pave it back to DOT standards, and that's done. We're not sure exactly why that pipe broke. We did have some work under the east sidewalk, probably 2-3 years ago, where we replaced a valve. We're not so sure that if that changed elevation, it put that pipe in a bind because it broke 8 feet west of that. Snapped in half. We have to have that pipe under the road because everything west of there is tied in on 7th Avenue. So that's a long run from 7th Avenue through the back alley all the way to the 10-inch water main on the east side of 441. If we were to, on about 2nd Avenue, I think, if we were to run a water main down 2 blocks, we could tie into a new water main. Then we could get rid of that crossing under the road. We could isolate it, just fill it with grout and be done with it.
Well, John, is that where we put the valves in that have been there since 1961?
No, that was down about O'Reilly
Okay.
and
Well,
by
we did
Gilbert Snapper, the
Yeah.
Gilbert dealership. That whole main is old. It's a 10-inch main. It will be very costly to fix and replace. It's all under the sidewalk. Lots of telephone, other items in there. But it's an old water main.
Was this something that we could be doing, like you just said, you could move back and run down to 2nd? And is there some way we could circumvent that?
We did that on the east side, on southeast 2nd Avenue. We put a new water main from when Visiting Nurse Association came in all the way down to about 6th Street.
Okay.
We could do the same on the west side. It would go from that mid-block area. If we were to do it complete, it would go from the mid-block area by Southwest Park down to Aldi's. And there's a new 8-inch water main right there. If we had all those tied in, then the 10-inch is of less value to us. And we could probably go back. There's still water meters out there.
Right.
But we could go back to drill in a 2-inch poly line and serve all of those water meters.
Okay. Just thinking that, like you say, it'd be a mess trying to dig that sidewalk up there on Main Street and lay water line down through there.
It would be pretty costly.
Okay.
Can be done.
It
but
can
would,
be done.
But it would be kind of costly.
Anything can be done. If
have
you
money.
got the money.
One suggestion, I was out there Saturday, and I commend our staff, not only over there, but on Southeast 8th Avenue where I live, because the pipe broke again. But where that pipe broke, if we could have the police department close off the lane, the next lane out there. God forbid somebody plows in.
Oh, we had one of our biggest guys that had his best piece in that lane.
We did, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
Stubby had been over when you sent me that picture, and I'm like, oh, no. He's hanging out of my...
It was kind of a, if there was anything good about it, it happened late in the day, early evening, and on the weekend when the traffic, in the summertime when the traffic is less. But it was at night, it was raining, it was kind of ugly.
And you still had one idiot try to run over you.
Yeah, I don't know what that guy was doing, but anyway.
But nobody's looking over there. When I left the store,
He thought that lane was for him to drive down.
Next
our
time,
work.
bring the vac truck up and park it in that lane.
It was our work zone, but he thought it was his private turning lane, so.
Yeah. Protect yourself with equipment.
yep.
So, but that's all I have for you this morning.
Any items from the board members at this time? If not, meeting adjourned.
Okay, let's go home. Let's go to work.